Welcome to Enjoy Fort Wayne. This episode is brought to you by the Waialainai Farmers Market and highlights the 350 vendors that make up the #1 market in the state of Indiana.
Anna Bau, Dalucio Italian Bakery.
Awesome. So already our listeners can hear an accent, and we're going to find out all about that. We love it. So you were born where?
I was born in Italy, in a town very close to Milan.
Okay, close to Milan. Okay, and tell me what life was like for you. We're very intrigued because we just don't know. You know, I've never been to Italy. A lot of those that are listening have never been, and we just don't know what it's like. We know what it's like here in America, but maybe tell us some differences and tell us what life was like.
Yeah. So, well, I guess the pace is a bit more relaxed. I know it's a little bit of a stereotype, but I guess a bit slower. There's more emphasis, I guess, on like enjoying life, I guess, in a good way. Not in a way of like, oh, we are lazy or anything like that, but there's like a different culture about it. Like we really value our time outside work. Instead, maybe here in the US, a lot of people are more hustling, right? There's the hustle culture a little bit. But no, it was like not when you ask like people and they ask me about my childhood and I ask them about their childhood in the US, I find there's very similar. It's just like a little bit the dynamic. Where I grew up, it's a very green area, very close to the lakes, very close to the mountains, not too far from the seaside. So I was very lucky in that respect where I could see a lot of different scenarios and landscapes very, very close to my house. I could see the mountains from my window.
Wow.
And I know that inside here, well, the US is huge. It's basically a continent. I know people have more difficulty, let's say, in traveling or experiencing different states even. Instead, for me, it was very easy to travel, and I was very lucky about that. And the town where I grew up is very, very close to Switzerland.
Okay.
So also my parents have a huge passion for traveling. And again, it's much easier to travel in Europe. So I was very lucky since a very young age I was able to travel a lot. That's, I guess, the biggest difference that I noticed, that usually for us it's a bit easier to experience different countries. But if you think about it again, the US is much larger than Europe. So
Sure, and we only have Canada and then Mexico.
Yes.
There isn't much opportunity besides going really far. Whereas for you could visit many countries and not have to travel that far.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong, since I started traveling in the US, I noticed like how much different the US is within itself. You have, I don't know, Wyoming and the ranch with the cowboys, and then you have Alaska, and then you have New York and LA. So even if it's like one country and the culture, let's say, is the same, you have a lot of cultures that are extremely specific to a certain region. And that's what I love about the US. Like, you're in the same country, but there's so much variety as well.
So I guess, again, we're just not used to that thinking because, yes, you're right that if you go to Wyoming, you will see a different, like you said, subculture. But we don't think of that being all that, I don't want to say weird, but like not normal. But for you, that's not normal.
Yeah.
So to come here and see that is very eye-opening for you, I guess, right?
And, also, like, I see with my friends that they ask me, oh, like, where do you live? When I moved, where are you moving? I think abroad, there's this almost misconception that the U.S. it's either New York or L.A. or the Grand Canyon.
Big city.
Right?
Like,
but in reality, when I tell them, I live in Indiana, and it's like not the normal life, but it's more like what you would expect, not the big city.
The Midwest. Midwest is different.
And it's more normal, not like the big city, the Grand Canyon, where you have this like jaw-dropping landscaping. It's more like normal. And you also have that, and it's beautiful, I think, because you can really see the difference. And I don't think that's very known abroad either.
Sure.
So.
Do you think that being in the Midwest, the lifestyle is a bit slower than, like you mentioned, New York
Oh,
or LA,
yes,
right?
yes. I lived in Wyoming, so that was completely different as well.
With the
But
Cowboys?
with the Cowboys, exactly, with the Bisons. No, here I like it more. It's more slow in the sense of more. I don't want to say normal in a bad way, but it's like the normal life. You don't have the pressure of the city of like making it and make money to survive. You are not in the wilderness. You're just living your normal life, and I really like that. I
Yeah.
really like that.
That's interesting. I think in this country, we just get caught up a little bit sometimes in more and more and more. I got to make
Yes.
this money. I got to do this. And there is a simpler life that many people that works for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very interesting perspective is what I
Yeah.
would say is that
Yeah.
you have, right?
Yeah.
Just an amazing perspective, and we appreciate hearing about that. So I want to ask you now about moving here permanently and like what that looked like. Did your family freak out? Is that normal for people to just move and now you live here?
Okay, so unfortunately in Italy we have this phenomenon called the brain drain, where unfortunately a lot of people who graduate from college and we have very good education, unfortunately and this is not the place, but there's like a lot of hiccups along the way, and we find it a bit easier to move abroad, so it's easier for parents to accept that that's unfortunately a reality. But in my case specifically, my parents always loved to travel, and we always did that. And I remember since a very young age my parents told me, if you want to move abroad, we are fine with it, we want you to pursue your dreams. And I'm an only child, keep that in mind. So then when I told them, well, we are moving to another country, and they were like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, you cannot be mad to me.
You told me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you should be fine with it. But and of course it's hard. But they are very happy, and I'm very glad I made the decision. So.
Yes, and we are too. So tell me the story of how you moved. You didn't know anyone. You just and where exactly did you move to?
Okay, so the whole story began when I was 19, and so the year prior, in 2016, I took a trip to the US with my family, and we did the West Coast by car. So we saw all the parks and all of that. And for some weird reason, we went to Yellowstone, and usually that's out of the way. It's like usually 8 hours diversion from your route that you usually take when you see the national parks. And when I was there, I saw at the gift shop in Old Faithful, I saw this girl selling at the gift shop, and she had her tag with an Italian flag, and she was like, oh, I go to this college and I'm here with this program. And I was like, oh, cool, that's the same college I am going to. So fast forward to a year later.
Wow, what are the chances that
I know.
That you just happen to see that?
I know.
Okay.
And then a year later, I was looking for some opportunities abroad with my college. And I was not really interested in the traditional 6 months abroad to study. And I saw the same program. So I remembered about the girl. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool, to work in a national park in the US and still practice my English. And, it's not like you go there to make money or anything like that. It's more the experience. It's something a bit unconventional. I was like, sure. And I signed up for myself, just went. I met a couple of other Italian friends that I'm still friends with. And then I met my husband. He was working there for the season as well.
Okay.
And
so you meet this guy and you're like, okay.
Yes, but we didn't think anything of it. Like, oh, okay, cool. But there's like an ocean between us. So... whatever.
So you didn't date right away necessarily?
I mean, we were hanging out at the park, but then we were not making plans to still date long distance, right? So, but then, I don't know, it just evolved where we kept in touch. We were not expecting it. And I was like, I'm like, after the season in February, I think, I was like, I'm done with my exams. I can come for a couple of weeks. Do you want me to visit you? And he was like, sure.
I'm sure he was more excited than just sure.
Yes, well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then since then we kept again in touch. He visited me, I visited him plenty of times, and now we've been together for 6 years, I think. Yes. Sorry about that I forgot the date.
We won't tell him.
But yeah, no, and then he proposed, and it was like a decision. Okay, do we want to stay in Italy? Do you want to come to the US? And it made sense at the time for me to move to the US, and that's how I ended up in Fort Wayne. He's from Fort Wayne.
Okay. And so how long have you been in Fort Wayne?
2.5 years.
Okay. And now that is just amazing. And normally the show is about a half hour. We could go 2 hours, just more on this.
Oh, that would be very boring.
No. But I do want to ask you now about what you do and what you make.
Yes.
And how that came to be. Did you always enjoy cooking or been baking?
My dad, he has been baking since forever. And
that's a long time.
I know. And my dad is no longer as young as he was, but no, but his mom, my grandma, always handmade, homemade, anything. So he grew up with that culture. In Italy, it's very common, like the stereotypical Italian grandma, right?
Of course.
So
we watch movies, we know.
Exactly. But yeah, that's how he started, I guess, the baking process. And my dad has a very analytical mind, so he started working on his own recipes and tweaking them, and make them perfect for his standard. And that's how he
taught his daughter.
Exactly. So yeah, that's basically passed down through the generations. And
so you've always known kind of how to do it and stuff. Just growing up, it was just a thing you did.
Yeah.
But then, when did that come to be like, well, I can actually sell this?
Actually, I have to give credit to my husband fully, because it's like, I think people in the US, because at that time when we were talking, we didn't know that we would have stayed in Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
So that was like still at the very beginning when he was visiting me, tried my dad's pastries, and he was like, I think people would really enjoy them in the US. And we thought about it for a long time, and then when I moved, I started like thinking about the idea, and then once I moved, I started doing the farmers markets. So he really pushed me into making it into a business. Again, that hustle
See,
culture.
we got you. Did we brainwash you?
A little bit.
Are you okay with that?
I am very okay
We
with
apologize if that's not
It's
what you
fine.
wanted.
I think it worked out, right?
Yeah. We love having you at the market. What do you enjoy the most about our market?
All the people that I meet. I met so many wonderful people that, I love when they share, oh, I've been to Italy, I saw this, I saw that, or I am going to Italy, what do you recommend? I love the connections that I created, and I'm very, very lucky about every single one of my customers. I don't want to call them customers, they are like friends.
Right. Yeah. Friends who are hungry.
Exactly.
And you have just what they need. So yes, one of my dreams is to visit Italy, and you're the first person I will contact to just ask questions. Yes, you have
to. Every single person that is listening right now, you have to go at least once in your lifetime, just for the historical value of it.
Right. No, amazing. So normally I ask questions regarding Fort Wayne, and I know you've only been here a short time, but because I'm gonna change it up and ask more about the country.
Yeah.
Because not only have you lived in Fort Wayne, you've lived in another spot of our country, but our country is still new overall to you.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what is something about this country that you would be willing to brag about to friends and family back home that you would say like, oh my gosh, this place is great because...
Yes. Okay, so this is going to be extremely stereotypical, but the freedom that you have. How
it really is that big of a deal.
I think it is, because I think the system here in the US makes it possible to the individual to do whatever they want. You can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. I want to open a business, $100 online, done. Instead, in Italy, for example, there's a lot of red tape. It's not promoting the change and the willingness to change and do something a bit differently. Instead, here, as long as you have an idea, you have someone that supports you. You can literally do whatever you want. And I really love that about the US.
That's such a big deal. You don't quite understand, since you're not from here, you may not understand this. But if you're listening to this, you understand what I'm saying. In that sometimes when you're from an area, you aren't able to step outside and be thankful for what you have. And in this country, I'm sure you've noticed that we complain a lot about how it's not this or that. And we forget that what we have is truly better, you're admitting, than most other countries. And sometimes we need to just remember that. And I think listening to this and hearing you say that can be very helpful for us.
Yeah. And also, you said a very interesting thing, because I stepped outside of my frame of the box of Italy. And I always say I became patriotic when I went abroad, because, it's easier to talk bad about your country and like saying, oh, this is bad. It used to be better. Now it's all bad.
Just like here.
Yeah.
People do that.
And I used to do that all the time back home. And again, you have different aspects. But when I stepped outside of Italy, it's like, okay, that's not too bad. I recognize the defects that we have, what we can work on. But there's plenty of things that I'm now missing. So, and I think it's true for everybody, right? So.
Yeah, I just think that's big that you said that freedom, something that we don't say that word a lot. It's just not a thing that we worry about because we have it so well. That's like saying people who have 3 meals prepared for them every day, and then when they say what are they thankful for, they don't say food because it's just something they always have.
Yeah.
Why would you be thankful for something that just shows up, right?
But also it's so interesting to me, and again, I don't want to make it longer than it should be, but I think overall Americans really embody their values and what comes from their history. You have it in the national anthem, right? And I think, maybe you don't realize that, but a lot of Americans, again, the general population embodies those values. And I think it's like very interesting because, for example, I don't feel very patriotic about Italy, which is so weird. But I feel like here people really embody the values of the nation.
Right. Man,
as a whole.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So we talked about what you'd brag about. What is something that you would say about our country? Not maybe like a negative thing, but something that maybe you've noticed over your time here that, like, if we're not careful and we continue down this path, it's not going to be good for us as a whole. Like anything that you notice. Yeah,
there's sometimes the extremes here are pushed a lot, I noticed. And it can be because of the media and all of that, but sometimes I don't like how extreme things can be.
Sure.
But I'm not used to that. So that's what stands out to me, at least.
No, that's another interesting take that is just something that we've grown accustomed to, but we need to also understand that's not normal. We shouldn't be doing that. Which is, again, alienating.
And it ties back to the freedom because you are so free, you are free to go in any direction, right?
It doesn't mean it's good.
No, I feel sometimes you can have these polarized opposites, and sometimes I don't like how polarized they are. But again, it's true to the nature of the country, I think. So it's not vicious cycle. It's the dog that bites its tail. That's how you say.
Yes.
It's kind of like an effect of the freedom, which is good, but sometimes it's scary, right?
Right. No, that's a great
And
Great
maybe now
point.
I'm doing any justice to Italy. now
No,
that I
you
speak,
are.
but I don't see that too much.
No, I
We
think,
still have extremes, though. Don't get me wrong.
of course, I think you come across very thoughtful and intelligent with this, and I think it's a good, again, perspective is huge. That you have a great perspective. A couple more questions.
Yes.
One about what you make. What is your favorite thing that you make also your bestseller or no?
Well, we don't have I have a, I like to call it a curated selection of products because also it's just me. So that's what I can do with the time I'm given.
Sure.
But I would say my favorite thing is tiramisu that I make. And crostatine are just like that's the bestseller. I would say everything is a bestseller. You know, you have people who like more the cantucci and the amaretti, and that's perfectly fine. But I think I like more tiramisu. But the crostatina has a special place for me because that's how it started all. So.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love hearing that. Okay, so last question.
Yes.
I always ask everyone. Now, will be really interesting. Again, your perspective. I love hearing about your perspective. But let's say the mayor of Fort Wayne, he called you one day and heard your story and said, Anna, I think you're wonderful. And I have commissioned you I'm going to hire a plane and it's going to write skywriting so that the whole city and the whole area can read it.
Okay.
And you get to say whatever you want so that we can all read it.
Oh, big.
So what is it going to say?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough question.
That's why I ask it.
What would I write? You have to edit this. I don't know. Oh my gosh. It's a big task that you're asking me. I don't know. Eat more authentic Italian food. No, probably not. But no, something like about, I don't know, support local. Something like that. Not just me. That's another thing that with the market, I started appreciating more local businesses, and I learned how much value we bring to the economy of the city. So support local. Yes, very cliche.
No, that's good.
Very cliche, but no, very important. So and that's another thing that I'm very grateful for the market, because now I shop to specific vendors for my groceries, right? So I love that I can feed into, I can make an impact on the life of someone else and contribute to their livelihood and the economy of the city. So I really love that.
That's awesome.
Very cliche, but yes, I support local.
No, that's okay. So can you tell us where we can find you on either like social media and all that?
Yes.
And the link will be in the show notes as well, but tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to reach out is on Instagram and Facebook. The handles are the same at dalucio.fw. And I also have a website. It's still currently under construction, so cool. I'm working on improving it, but it's the same, daluciofw.com. And yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, your stuff is so good. My parents love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so leave us with tell us in Italian to come to the Weil and I Farmers Market every Saturday from 9 to 1. Tell us in Italian.
Ok, venite al Weil and I Mercato ogni sabato dalle 9 alla 1.
This podcast is brought to you by Coraggio Media. The show is edited by me and sponsored by the Weil and I Farmers Market. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest updates. We will see you next week, where we will be sure to show you how you can enjoy Fort Wayne.